Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl Dream Team's Goblins. So what we're doing with the Dream Team series is we're having a look at a Blood Bowl team in League and kind of putting together what a great roster would look like at 1250, 1500, and in most cases 1750 as well. That kind of lines up with the first 8, 20, 30 games, so it could give you a good idea of if you're planning on playing with a team, where it can get to, and if you're planning on playing against a team, what you are likely to face. So Goblins are a little bit different because you kind of want to play the team value game, but what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at what your roster should be like when you're facing teams of 1250, 1500 and 1750. Anyway, onwards to Goblins. Okay, so we normally start this series looking at 1250 team value, so 1.25 million. And with most Blood Bowl teams, that'll be kind of, 6 to 10 games in, depending on what kind of team you're running. Now, Goblins have historically in Blood Bowl been very different, in that they've always wanted to induce bribes and star players. Now, sadly, when they transitioned to Blood Bowl 2020, they didn't really have any star players, so they didn't really have anything good to induce, so they've been in a bit of a dark place. However, some of the greatest star players in Blood Bowl are back on the pitch, specifically Bomber Dribblesnot and Fungus the Loon. So now Goblins have got the option to kind of keep their team value low and induce some carnage-wreaking star players. Now, we're not quite there yet, we are still waiting for Ripper to come back, but for now they've got a pretty great arsenal. So if your league is hitting around 1250, this is where I think your Goblin team will be. Now, obviously there's a couple of different ways to build a Goblin team at the start of the season, but I figure by 1250 this is probably where you'll be. You'll have added a few of the missing pieces. So, both trolls. You've got to have 2 trolls in Goblins. Now, until we get Ripper, or some other alternative big guy that actually does have throw teammate but at a less extreme price than the 380 you'd play for Morg, you got to have both trolls. Now, they are trained trolls, so they do have that 3+ loner, which, believe me, makes a remarkable amount of difference. They've got really stupid, so you do need to kind of herd them most of the time. So both your trolls, you've got 1 Pogoer, 1 Doom Diver. That bloomin' square I need to change to 2. So 1 Pogo, 1 Doom Diver. Now, you don't need the Doom Diver. The Doom Diver is not as good in this edition because it's the way it swoops just isn't as good, but it is a useful piece. You can bin it off, you can not run it, but it's cool, and most of the models that are out there for the Doom Diver, whether you're running Games Workshop or Torchlight or the new Punga team, it's a cool model, and the ability to kind of just spice up the one-turn touchdown is really worth having in your arsenal. And remember, we're looking at 1250 value here, so you've got a little bit of cash to play with. But if you want to increase your inducements, don't run the Doom Diver because it's kind of an added extra. But there are a few bits on a Goblin team that you really don't want to give up. We've got the Looney, the chainsaw player. Dude, chainsaws in Blood Bowl are awesome. This guy's a bargain price, and you want him there to mop up just anybody you knock down. And talking of knocking players down, we've got the Fanatic, which is the ball and chain player on this roster. Fungus the Loon is an exemplary ball and chain player, but rostering your own one is definitely worth it. Now, you can flex, you can drop that player and just use the inducements to hopefully grab the Fungus the Loon yourself, but with both the Looney and the Fanatic, you do kind of want to start brewing up your own version of those star players. We'll talk about skills in a second, but if you've got them rostered, you've always got them. If you end up in a league situation where you don't get enough inducements to bring on one of those star players, you are left a little bit flat-footed. And also, we're giving up the obvious thing here of having 2 of them, and 2 is significantly better than 1. So then there's the Hooligan. Now, the Hooligan kind of gets overlooked when it comes to Goblins. This is a great player. It's got disturbing presence, which is going to every now and again help when your opponent tries to throw the ball, hand off the ball, stuff like that. That's quite useful, but really what we're doing with this dude here is we are running around and putting the boot in. Dirty player +1, so you've got some great fouling options on this team, and when you are goblins, that's what you want to be doing. It is an expensive stunty team, so you kind of have to maximize everything. You've got great runners, movement 6, strength 2, stunty dodge 3++ is pretty good. If you're up against another stunty team, you're gonna destroy them. But if you're up against any other team, you are going to be punching above your weight a bit. So being able to put the boot in efficiently, like you can with the Hooligan, is a great way to go. So having him there is brilliant, because the more skills you get on some of these positionals, they turn into star players that you've got rostered on your team. And that's a very good thing. Then we're wrapping up the roster with 5 more goblins here. So that's 1, 2 trolls, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 players total for your core roster at this point. Now this roster is working out about 1100 TV, so you kind of spend your first 900 and then you add a couple of bits. You pick up an apothecary, you add a missing positional, or quite frankly you just replace a couple of goblins. 3 rerolls and the apothecary. Now you may think goblins are cheap, it's a cheap team, why do I need an apothecary? You don't, if you want to keep your team value as low as possible. This is where it gets really interesting with goblins, because there are 2 kind of main chains of thought. Now there's fungus, now there's bomber. There is the old extreme version of do not develop anybody, just keep your team value low to induce star players. That is now valid again. Or there's the other side, which is I have to roster players, so I might as well boost them up a little bit. And that I think is probably the better place to be. And with this 1250 roster that's actually coming in at 1.1 million, because we want that 150k of inducements at least, you're kind of halfway between those 2 extremes, and I think that's the best place to go for goblins. And quite frankly, goblins with a little bit of skill, stunty players with a skill or 2, they have just more character, I think, than any other player in Blood Bowl. As soon as that goblin gets block or sure hands or a skill up, you're just like, that's my boy, right? Grob Brady, sure hands, fantastic. We're now moving on. This guy is punching above his weight, and you get this underdog story mixed in with chainsaws, trolls, and just big ball and chains. It's fantastic. So we are budgeting for 150k here for inducements. So like we said, you can tone down your core roster, maybe leave out the Doom Diver, maybe leave out the Hooligan, maybe leave out the Apothecary to keep your team value low. But if you are looking at 100 to 100k inducements, what you need to take is Bomber Dribblesnot, who is just the best star player kicking around now. We've seen Goblins do really well. In fact, at our last 60-something player tournament, Goblins won, Goblins 2. Thanks to Bomber doing what Bomber does. And if you can squeak in 2 bribes, then that is the best way to be, because you've got the chainsaw, you've got the ball and chain, you've got Bomber Dribblesnot, that's 3 secret weapons, 2 bribes, actually 12 players plus Bomber, that's 13 players. You're going to lose some for secret weapons, so having those bribes to keep them on the pitch is definitely the way to go. So if you want to keep your team value lower, dropping the Doom Diver will allow you to have Bomber and the 2 bribes. Now, rostering a Bomber isn't really worth it. As long as you can budget to take actual Bomber Dribblesnot, it's just not worth having your own rostered one. He is just too boosted for 5k. For 5k, you get accurate, an extra passing stat. The guy's amazing. It's just definitely worth taking. So being able to use that bribe ability to take half-price bribes is just phenomenal when it comes to goblins. So this is kind of where I think a good middle ground is. Like I said, you can strip it all back and max out on your inducements, or you can buff your team up, but you want to be able to take at least Bomber and at least 1 bribe, or quite frankly, you're going to run out of goblins. So skills-wise, how do we get to 1250? The trolls may have scored a couple of casualties, may have got a random MVP or 2, and there are really kind of 2 great ways to go with your trolls. Strong arm on one of them is going to help you with that cheeky throw teammate angle. Now, we're not halflings. This is not like everything I just have to rely on throw teammate to win, because the rest of my team is made up entirely of wishes. But it helps. Strong arm is going to allow you to paratroop a goblin into the backfield. And the benefit here is that goblins have got good armor, they've got reasonable strength, they've got good movement. So actually, you get a goblin into the backfield, you're going to be able to pull off a 3++, 2 die up blitz on the ball carrier. that means your opponent is going to have to allocate 1 or 2 players to protect their ball carrier in the backfield. You're trading off the activation of one of your goblins against 2 to 3 of their other players, and their other players are basically going to be more valuable than your goblins. That allows you then to kind of weigh a little bit of numerical advantage, which is something you're going to need when you're made up mostly of strength 2 stunties. So that strong arm ability to just drop a dude the other side of the line is going to be really useful, and if you've got the diver, if you need to go for that one-turn touchdown approach, you can. Now, alternatively, patrols, you've got kind of a couple of other great combat options. The first is Brawler. If you watch the Bonehead Championship, Brawler, we had Barry Brawler, one of the trolls on our Snotling team. Brawler's great. You're mostly throwing 2 to 3 die blocks. Actually, that helps. You don't have block. Technically correct, you can save up to 12 SPP with a troll and given block. That's going to take you a long time. Going to be a bit easier when it's Blood Bowl 3 and you can just farm games, but it is still going to take a little while. You're going to get to 6 SPP a lot quicker, and therefore having Brawler is going to make you more efficient in combat, and Guard is actually going to help your goblins be much better players. It's not perfect because strength 2 to strength 3, while being awesome, is probably not enough to get profitable 2 die blocks. But actually there will be some cases where having Guard on one of your big guys means you don't have to activate him, and you can mob some goblins in there to get some really good hits. The Pogoer is a superb player. We'll talk about his skills as it gets a little bit further along. Your Pogo is going to do a good job probably of scoring, but there's a couple of different ways to go with him. You can be your defensive player and you can save up, or you can do some scoring bits. I'm going to assume that at this level what you're going to do is you're going to save up for that Pogoer, and you're going to take either block eventually or wrestle eventually to be either a really good scorer or a really good safety. It's a long way to go, but actually the Pogoer is going to get 4 touchdowns quicker than you think. It's going to be one every other game, basically. So by game sort of 5, 6, 7, he's going to be well on his way to actually being able to get that double. Now the Doom Diver, of which there is only one, I apologise for the graphic. If you're running him, you've got Jump Up as a great option because you might stack it, but Dodge is probably a better way, because what happens with the Diver is you throw him, he lands where you want him to do, he successfully doesn't fall over, and then you don't have that dodge ability, and it just lets you down when you're trying to move around. Now, the Chainsaw. The Chainsaw is a cheap secret weapon. He's going to be on there for just 1 drive. Now, you've got some bribes, so actually using him will be okay. Maybe a second drive in there. Now, dodge is not a skill you can use with the secret weapon Chainsaw. Okay, so you can't go dodging into tackle zones the way you used to, but it will help keep him alive for a very low cost. The problem with the Chainsaw is you're not going to get SPP for casualties, so you're really relying on MVPs here and maybe some defensive casualties. Okay, so he is going to develop very, very slowly, probably the slowest of all of your players. Taking dodge is going to help keep him alive because he is going to be a super target for your opponent. If your opponent gets a chance to 2 die, 3 die block him, they're going to take it. Dodge is just going to keep him alive. Alternatively, if you're feeling confident, taking Sneaky Git is going to allow him to run around and do foul blitzes on the ground at +3. So if you want him to stay alive to make more standard blocks, dodge is great. If you want to just be like, I want to get my money's worth out of this dude, then Sneaky Git is a really entertaining one to go with. Then you've got the Fanatic. Now, straight up, the obvious skill to take on the Fanatic is Mighty Blow, because you're going to be 2 die, 3 die blocking a lot of the time, and actually you want those blocks to hit. I am going to offer you an alternative strategy here, which is that by taking Brawler, those 2 3 die blocks are going to be safer for you. Now, Mighty Blow is going to knock guys down and keep them there. Brawler is going to knock guys down better, but it's also going to keep you standing. So if you roll that both down, both down, both down, you're going to get a chance to not go both down, first of all, but also you're going to get the opportunity to take that both down and re-roll it into a POW. It is just going to make your blocks more effective, and because you're rolling 2 or 3 of them a turn, in theory, actually Brawler is a really good skill on a Fanatic. Mighty Blow is more bloodthirsty, but Brawler is a little bit safer. So when you've got the Looney and you've got the Fanatic, Dodge keeps them alive, Brawler keeps the Fanatic alive, Sneaky Git maximizes the running around murdering, and Mighty Blow maximizes the ball and chain murdering. So you kind of got two chains of thought there. The Hooligan is our noise creating fouler. Sneaky Git, dude. That means you can run around. It helps you not get sent off, which is great, which is going to help you with your bribes, but also means you can run in, drop the boot with +1 for Dirty Player, and then run off again to where you need him to be. Then you've got the core of this team, which is the remaining goblins. They are excellent stunties. We've seen this on Underworld, the goblin on Chaos Renegades, and quite frankly the Black Orc team. Even though they've got slightly souped up goblins are brilliant. Their stat line is pretty great. Now there's two things here with goblins. Taking a guy, just one guy with jump up, gives you that paratrooper. It's a single skill, and it is a goblin that you just chuck on defense onto the other side of the pile, and it just creates this backfield threat for your opponent. He's probably going to die, which is absolutely fine, but he is going to absolutely cause a threat and therefore a distraction. Your opponent will not have any choice except to detach 1 or 2 players to guard that goblin, because goblins can get very easy 2-die up blocks on your ball carrier in the backfield. And because they're stunty 3++ dodge, they can pick up the ball, and just with movement 6, therefore movement 8 with a couple of rolls, if you've got a goblin in the backfield, they are 8 squares away from grabbing that ball and scoring a touchdown. It is a genuine threat, and either your opponent's going to spot that and defend, and therefore taking activations away from the core combat, or they're not going to notice, and every now and again you are just going to be able to run in, pop a dude down, cost them turns, maybe even sweep up the ball, and cause a defensive score with a goblin, which is just excellent. Now, the other goblins, when you get to 6 SPP, don't take random agilities. It's fun, but it's not worth it. Save till 6 SPP and then take random generals. There are only a few bad options, but there are a ton of great ones. And then you're going to build some super goblins here. This is really exciting. You're going to get a block goblin, a wrestle goblin that can run in and drop the ball, a tackle goblin, which is very effective against other stunty teams and things like lizardmen and gutter runners. That's a 1-die tackle block. That's fantastic. Then you've got kick, which is going to be really useful for your goblin team. If you're thinking about paratrooping, you can drop that ball right at the back, and it's going to allow you to just mob the midfield, or you can drop it close and just envelop your opponent. Not as useful, but actually dropping the ball to the backfield and splitting their offense is going to be really beneficial to your team as goblins. I mean, sure hands. You get a ball picker-upper. As many random generals as you can with goblins. They're not long for this world. They will survive a little bit, but there's just an absolute host of skills, and quite frankly, because goblins are quite cheap and you're not going to be buying a ton, you're going to have the spare cash. If you roll a shadowing goblin and you think, I don't really want this, or a fend goblin, then you just bin him off. Frenzy goblin, that's what you want. Anyway, there's a ton of cool stuff you can do with that. So that is, and this is the tough thing here, is this is probably as good as your goblin team is gonna get, because it's probably as good as it needs to get. You got a couple of random skill ups on your goblins, you're saving up for your primary, for a secondary on your pogoer. Your trolls are gonna slowly get some skills. Let's have a look and see what the next stage looks like. So we've kind of bumped the team up to about 1300 here, and this really is, I think, the cap, the ceiling for a goblin team. So the trolls have picked up their second skill, and it is up to you which ones you choose. You've got a mixture of their brawler, guard, and strong arm. Any two of those is great. Strong arm's going to help you throw stuff, guard's going to help your other players be stronger, and brawler's going to keep your troll trolling, which is all going to be really useful. Now, obviously, the technically correct thing is to save up forever and take block. But dude, that's boring. It will keep your TV a little bit lower, but I don't know, man. I'd rather have some skills on my trolls as they're on the pitch. So by this point, we've saved up. The pogoer has scored 4 touchdowns and has taken either block to be a blodging scorer. Okay, movement 7 with pogo stick on 3+ is great. Or you take wrestle, because the pogo is going to be able to jump into places on that 3+ with a team reroll to just kind of land in there, 2-die up wrestle. It's definitely worth it. The pogoer is a sneaky star player. I prefer the block angle. You're going to get those touchdowns, and then actually you can look at chucking in some extra agility skills like like sure feet to make you faster, like make you more accurate, or quite frankly, just save up forever and take a stat up. Pogoer with a stat up is brilliant. Movement 8 is wonderful. Edge 2+ with Pogo is fantastic. And if you can roll that sweet Strength 3 Pogoer, you've created a legend in your own league. So block first and then maybe just save up for the rest of time, keep your team value low, and then one day you've got a Movement 8, Strength 3, Edge 2+ Pogoer that costs about 400k. Still pretty cool. So the Doom Diver, dodge and then catch. The Pogoer can also take catch if you want him to be a quick scorer, but I don't know, it's a low use. For the Doom Diver, however, who is going to be kind of one of your biggest angles to a one-turn touchdown. Now, it's not what it used to be, so the Doom Diver inclusion in your roster is entirely up to you. Like, not taking the Diver probably gives you enough gold to take Fungus the Loon instead. So you've got like I can go for the throw, or I can go for the murder. So both are great for goblins. Loony Chainsaw, dodge, sneaky git, sidestep is great, or you can save up forever, because bear in mind this player is not going to get SPPs really. Dirty Player is a great combo if you can wait that long. I kind of like the idea of taking dodge to keep him alive and then saving up forever to take Dirty Player. Plus 4 to fouls with a chainsaw is easily going to make back your money. So that's kind of the dream. Sidestep, okay, once you've got dodge, is actually going to be really effective. Your goblin's not going to hit the ground so often because he's got dodge, and sidestep means he's going to be able to just end up in a really aggravating place. It is sadly quite an expensive way to build a secret weapon. You know, think about it, it's going to be what, 80k by the time he's got a couple of primary skills on there. It's still cheap, but it is not insurmountable. So actually, I don't know, maybe saving all the way to Dirty Player is probably a good fun way to do it. But it's goblins, they're not going to live forever. Fanatic, Ball and Chain, Brawler, Mighty Blow are the two best skills. Brawler's going to mean more consistent hitting and therefore less opportunity to double, to both down yourself out of the game. That's kind of where I'm going with this, is that actually you've got more chance to power your enemy down, but also you've got a little bit better chance to not take yourself out at the same time. But really, when this dude gets Mighty Blow, then you start cooking on gas. And actually, Sprint and Sure Feet, if you want to wait and save up as well, is going to give you your own Fungus the Loon at movement 4, 5, 6. And then you can really just spin around, just causing absolute carnage. The Hooligan, Sneaky Gets fine. Goblin Lineman, Jump Up. As many generals as you can. This is it. This is where you want your Goblin team to go. The only thing you can do that's more spicy than this is just not spend your SPPs and take doubles on all your players, save up and take stat ups. The problem with goblins though is they're not going to be scoring that often. You're not going to be getting that many SPP, and they may not live long enough for you to save up. The Pogoer, confident you're going to get enough TDs to be able to score that double. Everybody else though, you kind of got to take little and just juice it up. Then you can kind of lean in to the extra petty cash that you get to be able to afford those inducements. Now we're going to have a series of videos coming out soon which is inducement guides for teams. Goblins are a really interesting one. You've got Bomber, you've got Fungus, you've got Bribes, and then you actually kind of have some other great options too when it comes to goblins. But for a kind of mid-range, not min-max inducement, not max out goblins as a team, this I think is probably the best place to go. Goblins are a great challenge. Now they've got Bomber, they've got a little bit of an edge back, because actually Bomber is going to cause your opponent some serious problems, and where you've got bribery and corruption, you've got the bribes to just keep them on the pitch. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what other builds have been really successful and what other great tips you've got for running goblins, because it would be really cool to kind of collate this so that when someone comes along and they're like, how do goblins work in League, we've got a nice little helpful comment section. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.